Hello everyone, thanks for joining me today. So I have never really participated in any kind of reading challenge or readathon. I like to read at my own pace, and lots of readathons or challenges happen during a certain time frame, and I generally don't like to lock myself into reading specific books in case I'm not feeling like reading them when it's time to pick my next book. I'm a mood reader and I pick whatever appeals to me at the moment that I need to pick a new book, but I got this bookmark in one of my OwlCrate monthly subscription boxes, and it is the OwlCrate Reading Challenge. There is a prompt for each letter in the word OwlCrate, and on the back are blank lines to fill in the book that you read for each prompt. And you know, this doesn't have like a time limit or anything, it's just a random little challenge that you can take or leave, and I decided that I wanted to just go for it, have sort of a self-imposed challenge with no real deadlines or structure, so I can just do what I want basically. Feel free to do this yourself at your own pace and show me. I'd love to see what books you guys pick. So the categories are Own Voices, Winner of a Literary Award, Last Book in a Series, Comic or Graphic Novel, Reread a Favorite, Audiobook, Tome, which they define as being over 500 pages, and Epistolary Novel. I have tentatively picked out the books that I want to read for each of these categories, and I feel pretty good about actually following through and reading the ones that I've selected here. For the Own Voices prompt, I'm going to read The Gilded Ones by Namina Forna. The main character is 16-year-old Decca, who discovers during her village's blood ceremony that her blood is gold rather than the traditional red, marking her for, you know, some sort of terrible fate. And she decides to go away with this mysterious woman to train with other girls that are like her, who have special gifts, to fight for the Emperor, and discovers that things, you know, aren't quite what they seem. I love this OwlCrate edition cover so much. It's gorgeous. And the letter from the author that came with this book, that comes with all OwlCrate books, is really compelling, so I'm just really excited for this one. For the Winner of a Literary Award prompt, I'll be reading The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This won the 2009 Hugo Award, which is for sci-fi and fantasy, and was also given the Newbery Medal, which is for children's books. It's received other awards and nominations as well, but you can see right on the cover those two awards at least. So this is about a boy named Nobody Owens who goes by Bod, and he lives in a graveyard and was raised by ghosts. That's really all I know about it. I think he goes on different adventures, meets different spooky people, and there's a man named Jack who killed Bod's family and maybe is trying to kill him too. I'm not sure exactly. I've read a few different books by Gaiman, and I generally like his very British style, and this book has clearly received high praise over the years. For Last Book in a Series, I had a couple different options actually. I decided to go with A Conjuring of Light, the third and final book in the Shades of Magic trilogy by V.E. Schwab. The first two books were so good, they were both very different from each other in terms of plot and focus, so I'm curious to see where the final book goes. And in this world, there are four sort of parallel worlds that all have a city in them called London. They're referred to as Red London, Grey London, White London, and Black London. There's a character named Kell who is a rare and powerful blood magician. Then there is another main character, Lila Bard, who is a thief from our world, which is Grey London, who becomes swept up into events, and other characters that are also great. There is also element-based magic, like manipulating fire or earth, and that always has a special place in my heart, element-based magic. But there's also a kind of dark and dangerous magic threatening to wreak havoc in the Londons. I don't want to spoil anything from the first and second book, but I do have a review of both books on my channel, so go check them out if you're interested. I love Schwab's writing style, so I can't wait to see the conclusion of this series. For comic or graphic novel, I'm going to be reading the 5th volume of Monstress by Marjorie and illustrated by Takeda. It's called Warchild, Volume 5. So this series is one of the most beautifully illustrated that I've ever seen. The artwork is just so stunning, full color. It's what drew me to it when I first saw the cover of Volume 1. And it's a big part of why I'm continuing the series. Not that the story is bad, but the farther along I get, the more opportunities there are for me to just feel confused, like I'm not quite grasping everything that's going on. So this takes place in a 1900s Asian Art Deco, steampunk inspired fantasy world and centers around this teenage girl named Micah Halfwolf. She is an arcanic, a race sort of like animals slash like spirits slash demons sort of. They're non-human anyway, and there is a war going on between humans and arcanics, and Micah is searching for answers about the murder of her mother, and she has this connection to this ancient god called a monstrum that lives inside her body and makes her crave human flesh. It definitely has some scary imagery, graphic imagery, violent nudity. It's very dark. I mean, even like just by this cover, you can kind of tell it's kind of scary. It's very dark, gritty, and just has a really rich feel to it. The artwork is just so incredible. And so the story is good. It's just kind of confusing to keep track of and understand, I guess. I also don't really like Micah very much. She's been through some really terrible things, but she's also just really mean and rude and not very likable, to me anyway. But at this point I'm invested and want to continue, so I'm going to be reading this. For reread a favorite, I'm going with a pretty short one, but one that I still think about surprisingly often, and that is Full Tilt by Neal Shusterman. This is a horror novel following 16-year-old Blake and his younger brother Quinn. Basically, a supernatural phantom carnival arrives near his town, and Quinn gets sort of swallowed up by it and disappears, and Blake has to rescue him and escape with their souls intact. And to do this, he has to survive 7 carnival rides that each represent a deep personal fear. I just remember being captivated by the imagery the author painted of these creepy, twisted facsimiles of carnival rides, and I just randomly think about certain passages to this very day. I first read this around 15 years ago. It's been a long time, and I'm looking forward to a quick nostalgic read. It's only about 200 pages, so really quick. It'll help me catch up to my Goodreads reading challenge. I'm like 5 books behind schedule, so. I remember being kind of surprised when I learned how popular Neal Shusterman has become with his like Arc of a Scythe series, because this was the first book that I read by him 15 years ago, and it's, you know, like a horror book. So and I do have Arc of a Scythe, and I do plan to read that soon. For audiobook, I've decided to go with Legendborn by Tracy Deonn. I just realized that a lot of the books I'm reading for this challenge have main characters who are 16. But anyway, so the story is about 16-year-old Bree Matthews, whose mom died in an accident. She joins this residential program at UNC Chapel Hill and witnesses some sort of magical attack on campus. And there is a secret society of students called Legendborn who hunt down these demonic creatures. And Bree, I guess, has her own magic powers that are kind of awakened, and she's on a mission to figure out what really happened to her mother by infiltrating the Legendborn. I don't know much else about this one, but I heard, I think from Chloe, from Books with Chloe, that the audiobook for this was really good, and the book is on my TBR already. I have never listened to an audiobook before. Something about the idea of consuming a book without turning a page or being able to flip back to a certain spot to reread something is just inherently unappealing to me. And I just worry that I won't retain as much of a book if I'm only listening to it, but I've always said I would try it one day, so here's my excuse. And this is also one of the only books for this challenge that I didn't already own. I think I'm gonna sign up for, like a free trial on an audiobook site, maybe Audible or something. Who knows, maybe I'll end up loving audiobooks after this, we'll have to see. T is for Tome, and for this I actually just recently completed my choice, which is Rhythm of War, the 4th and most recent installment of the Stormlight Archive by Brandon Sanderson. This bad boy is about 1,200 pages, so it definitely counts as a tome. So Stormlight Archive is now, for sure, one of my favorite fantasy series of all time. I love Brandon's writing style, love his world building and characters, love how frequently he releases books and updates about his books. This series takes place on the world of Roshar, which is dominated by these huge sweeping weather events called high storms. And high storms recharge these gemstones that are used as both currency and sources of light and power. You're following a large cast of characters through the series, and there is a lot going on, especially by book 4. There's a really cool magic system that allows for lots of really cool things to be done depending on various combinations of what are called surges. There are these super powerful and important artifacts called shard blades and shard plate, which grant their users superior strength, stamina, and firepower in battle. I did a spoiler-free review of the first book, The Way of Kings, so go check it out if you want to learn more. Hopefully I managed to upload my review of this book very soon. And last but not least, we have an epistolary novel. I had to look up this word. So traditionally, this is a book written as a series of letters, but I think in recent times it's come to just include books that present things like, newspaper articles and emails and transcripts of audio, that kind of thing. In previous reviews, I've always called that mixed media format. So I've chosen to go with Illuminae, the first book in the Illuminae files, which is sci-fi. This is the other book apart from Legendborn that I didn't already own. I went out and bought this. I don't have a lot of epistolary novels, and the few that I have that I would call epistolary novels, in hindsight, I've already read. So I did go out of my way to buy this specifically for this challenge. This is a really cool looking compilation of like emails, maps, reports, interviews, and all this cool stuff. Like, look at this page. It has like text along the bottom. Like, this looks so cool. And so this tells the story of two people, Katie and Ezra, whose planet is being invaded. They evacuate, but there's some sort of plague spreading on their ship. The ship's AI might be working against them. They don't know what's going on, and they're trying to figure it out. And the two protagonists are ex-boyfriend and girlfriend, adding tension on top of everything. I've seen great things about this, heard it was really engaging. I distinctly remember that Kayla from Books and Lala loved it, and she has very particular taste, and she really enjoyed it. This has also been on my TBR for a long while, and it fits the prompt, so it's perfect. So those are my 8 books that I want to read for this OwlCrate reading challenge. I have a good mix of both long and short books. Not super diverse when it comes to genre. The vast majority of them are some sort of fantasy, but it's my bread and butter. It's what I will always be most excited to read, and there are plenty of readathons out there that dictate specific genres, and this just isn't one of them, I've decided. So if this sounds fun to you and you decide to do it, I'd love to see the books you picked and your journey. So thank you guys so much for watching. Looking forward to reading and talking about these books, and I will see you guys later. Bye!